Centralization of power, and I think we talked about this sometime. And also, we were just having a light conversation with Kev, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago here on studio, and he was like, the president might be overwhelmed. The president might have too much on his plate. I mean, you can't be trying to control SHA. You're here trying to deal with the teachers. You're trying to, sort of the medical perspective. And I still feel like this decentralization thing needs to really be worked on.
Right.
Is there ever going to be a leader who's going to come into power as the president of the republic and say, okay, now, you know what, as president, as the, there's too much that's on my plate, and I do now want to decentralize, issues and see how things can work in cognizance with each other.
Right.
Because that's what I'd really love to see, because I feel like that's the core part of our problems here. There's too much on one plate.
There's too much on one plate.
Yeah.
So, and I fully agree with what you said, because my individual thoughts as one singular in the 54 million of us, I'm saying, yes, the president is overwhelmed. And why is the president overwhelmed? I jump back and trying to look at what is it that he's trying to deliver. The president is trying to deliver his electoral promises. At the same time, the president is trying to leave a legacy. At the same time, the president is trying to organize the political arm. Maybe that's not the right term. He's trying to organize the politics of our country in a manner that favors his government. The president is also trying to reach out internationally and position Kenya as a favorable nation amongst other nations. And you look at all those and you say, this is one, could I say, individual trying to run the vision and trying to push everyone towards that vision. Let me use some comparative examples. Kwame Nkrumah, when he was the president of Ghana, was told he was where he was, seeing people celebrating the coup that was ousting him. And he was asking the question, why are they celebrating? Don't they know that the vision we had for this nation is now going down the drain?
Right.
And his aides, or one of his aides, was telling him, the people want milk, the people want food. That is what they're striving for today. You are talking about building dams and huge projects and positioning us as this and that. But right now, what the people are crying for is food. If they can get milk, they can get food. That's all they'll be happy with. Of course, the people of Ghana could not see the vision Nkrumah had. And that was the struggle he had. He was trying to take Ghana to be a Pan-Africanist nation.
Right.
And the people were saying, and which is also happening in South Africa and to Malema, what about this Pan-Africanism when we have our day-to-day struggles here? We will die before we achieve that Pan-Africanist aspiration. And in the same way, that's where we are today in Kenya. People are saying our struggle is healthcare, our struggle is food, our struggle is... And you find that all these things were in the president's campaign manifesto. That's what he went selling around to people in the hustler slogan. And people bought into it because they said he gets into office, these struggles that we are having now
reduced.
We'll see as being the day-to-day struggles. Then after that, we can now talk about the big aspirations. But what is happening is there appears to be grandiose projects going on, grandiose projects being peddled and talked about, but the sovereign is at that point where they're in despair. And they're saying school fees is coming.
The basics.
Healthcare is coming. This is the basics, as you put it, is struggling at that level. And saying all this SHA and SHIF and reorganizing this and that while we're struggling at this basic level is what the 76 or 79% were crying about.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned how he's trying to position this country of ours in terms of, for example, our democratic ideals, also making it very investor friendly, but internationally, we just saw the other day the president being voted in as the second most corrupt person in the world. This is huge. I wonder what it's going to do to his reputation, the reputation of the country. And were you surprised that he was actually voted by Kenyans? Over 40,000 Kenyans.
Right.
As a second. In fact, he actually outdid, in terms of numbers, he outdid Bashar. What's his name
Bashar
again?
al-Assad.
Bashar. It's just that Bashar is an extremist.
Right.
Were you surprised?
I was not surprised in this regard. Okay, let me take that back. I might have been surprised when I saw that message come out first, because I thought, how badly off are the other nations? Or how good are they having it?
There you go.
That they're not able to point out their president as we are. And then you look at it and say, if in the World Corruption Index that is usually released, Kenya usually ranks 120 something about. But in this particular instance, we outdid, when I say 126, I mean out of about 200 nations.
Yeah.
So even the countries that rank below us did not vote. That was my first point of surprise. And if they did not vote, then my question was, are they having it nice, or are they just not, they don't bother? They've just taken a backseat, because 40,000 is a number that any nation can summon, right, easily. Right. And if they want to top, they can always say, probably the OCCR organization, what they could do is have a running tally, so that people can see
that's true.
Who is voting, how in which nation. Then the people can say, how is it that this nation is, and then, but maybe that will introduce other dynamics. People will start out-competing each other, as opposed to, so this one then, in these instances, was a very honest assessment that the Kenyans looked at that appeal to vote or nominate, and they said, I'm putting so-and-so's name and going with it and running with it. And when other tallies came, then the Kenyan topped
the tallies.
The surprise, initially I was taken aback, like, oh, wow, really? That was, we had more Kenyans that voted. Then finally you see the result, and then that came. But you had a very pertinent question. I think it has just flown out of my thought.
I mean, I'm just talking about in terms of investor confidence, for example, in terms of the reputation, in how it's positioning our country. What does this mean for people who engage with our country?
Will people lose confidence?
Yes.
Right. So I look at that and I say, do people really care about Kenya? So that the perception, I mean, their investment decisions will be made based on that particular survey. I'm not so sure, because Transparency International usually releases the index ranking. Right. And I believe people who are looking at investing will pay more attention to that
than just
than this OCCR, which was judge's decision is final kind of situation. I think the Transparency International perception of corruption index will have more weight in such a decision. But nevertheless, at a social spectrum, people will be looking at the president of Kenya very, very cynically, if I may put it that way, especially internationally.
Yes.
The problem is that stench will follow the next president.
Oh, interesting.
Because it may take long for them to not remember that it is not this guy.
True.
They will always remember the president of Kenya was known to be corrupt. The next president will have a hard time trying to re-image Kenya. Or themselves based on that.
You know, also, we saw the ODM party, they pledged to continue holding the government accountable even as the country, of course, was set to usher, this was now yesterday, set to usher in the new year. And I saw ODM's executive director, Odor Ongwen, he said that the party will continue to stand firm in advocating for policies and actions that will better the lives of Kenyans. The party also asked Kenyans to continue embracing unity, saying it is key to overcoming challenges facing the nation. However, qua ground, as they say, the opposition has really let down Kenyans. And because of that, the younger Kenyans have taken up the role of the opposition. They're getting out there, they're using what they have, the resources, they're using social media. Even the influencers now, they're calling out certain government officials, taking pictures, they're doing all these other things. So my question is, do we even have an opposition at this point? Yeah.
So do we have an opposition?
And are Kenyans right to call out the opposition, saying, you guys just keep quiet? You know what? You're in bed with the government. Just accept it. You've dropped the ball. You're not really doing your mandate.
Right. So in the architecture of the Kenyan society, opposition appears to be a by the way. We have never designed opposition. We have never designed what role an opposition party or opposition movement would look like. I'm using this because I'm borrowing from existing jurisdictions. You find that in the UK, the opposition has someone called a shadow minister. So you're the finance minister, JP is the shadow, he's in opposition. You propose your policy, JP proposes alternative policy.
Correct.
So that at any one time, if I'm the citizen, I'm able to look at what Kev says and then what the alternative may be. So that in the UK, if the Conservative Party says, this is our policy on education, the Labour Party will come up and say, our policy on education is this. Based on what they've said, we're challenging them on these grounds. And then it gives me grounds then to say, if this Conservative Party education policy is not working for me, then it means I have an alternative I can try. So in the Kenyan society, we've not designed that system where we have an alternative that we can refer to. In the past, we had Bill Okero being referred to as a shadow finance minister. And you could see that whenever there was a policy statement from government, he would write his and it comes in the media and he talks about it and all that. We have never had anyone in opposition. And let me take that back. We've never had anyone who is not in the ruling party thereafter proposing alternatives for us.
True.
Because all of them either say, we are now working with government. So you're working with government. Did you have your own policy that in case you are the government, you would have come with? And what is it?
Yeah.
And now if you're working with government, have you shelved whatever you had to now work with government? Then does it mean whatever you had was not good enough? So that you've discovered you are wasting time with your own alternative policy? They're not defending their position.
Yeah.
They're quick to jump onto government.
And they have no ideologies of their own. So it's just sailing on one boat.
Yeah. Right. No, they say it's social justice. Social democrats. We're out there fighting for the common man. But are they really?
Right.
Wow. So this issue of high unemployment in Kenya is also something that's just extremely crazy. We are a country that is full of resources. Each region has its own capability. How can this country just work with the resources that we have? This cabinet secretaries and ministers taking our youth to Qatar, to go there and do very shoddy jobs. It's not making sense at all.
Right.
How can we make sense as Kenya of what we have and sustain ourselves?
Good. I'm glad you asked that question. Let me start with the county because you touched on the county.
Right.
And one of my first points of critique on county governments as we have them in Kenya today is that we have too many county governments.
Yeah, Kev, you mentioned that.
Yes, I did.
My proposition has been, let us go back to the 8 provinces we used to have.
Right.
And those become the counties.
Yes.
They will do away, because you see right now, I don't know which experiment I can use, but at times you put, let me use oil, water, and what other substance creates separation, whatever it will be. but you put oil and water and you shake them and you let them settle. After some time, you will have the oil floating on top of water.
Yes.
They will separate. If you take soil, for example, put clay, loam, and sand and shake them, and then you let them settle. After some time, they will find their place.
Right.
You'll find some silting there. You'll find those strata.
Right.
And I'm saying we are steadily heading towards that direction with this current setup of the county governments. We are shaking the nation, and then we are letting it settle. And then at some point, you will find that there are certain counties that are predominantly one ethnic community. Right? And we're trying to build a nation here. And I'm saying these 47 will create strata of different, that you go to Mombasa, or Mombasa is cosmopolitan, that you go to, say, Mandera, and you cannot be employed there as much as you're qualified, because they will say, we only want a person of our. And it will not even be said, it will be implied, because you will see that you go from one office to the next, or you go to a different county. I'm not singling out Mandera, I'm just saying as an example.
Right.
You'll find a situation where in another 20 or 30 years' time, we'll have created a situation where you cannot even dare go look for employment in another county, because the predominant ethnic community there will not want you there. 8 provinces that we had, we make those the compulsory counties. Then you'll find the Rift Valley will not be owned by one ethnic community.
Right. There'll
be multiple ethnicities in there. And you cannot then say we're going to have someone of our ethnicity in a certain office, because the people they'll be serving will be multi-ethnic. That's one example. So that is on the county. There's another point you did raise. I'm trying to come back to it.
Yeah, I think I was already too deep in your conversation already. Yeah, just like
how can we sort out all this?
This unemployment with the resources we have.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the unemployment.
Right. So I started out by drawing for you that median age aspect.
Right.
That you have a bell curve of the population of Kenya, and we split it and we find that 18 and above and 18 and below. So it tells us, and let me give you additional. The median age of the United States is about 38 years old. The median age of Canada is about 40 years old. The median age of Africa is 18 years old. It tells you that in Africa, we have the youngest population in the world. What does that mean? It means we have a very bright future ahead of us. Why? All the rest are aging. We are the vibrant one. In the same way, if you go to a farm and you find that you have very old cows and someone else has very young cows, the one that has young cows can look forward to a very bright future, because my cows will then grow and then produce. The old ones will not produce. Will need to be taken care of in old age. So what am I saying in this regard? We look at, and here we're invited to then jump out a little and look at the countries in the world. Go to the US. You find they have a very vibrant arts scene, Hollywood and the likes. You find they have a very vibrant sporting world. The people who play in those games, as soon as you get to about 28 years old, they start saying, it's time for you to think of retirement. So essentially, they have the young people. Why am I singling out the sports world? Because I'm saying the young people that we have today, they have the energy that can propel them to act based on muscle and brawn. At a later stage, when they become, could I call it, more mature, they're advancing in age, then at that point, they start using their intellect. Today, Canada, the US, and other have a lot of people applying their intellect. But at the same time, the ones that are driving the economy are the ones people start working at the age of 16. Those are the young people that get things done, make the economy move at those micro levels to enable the macro activities to then stabilize and move their economies forward. I'm thinking the Kenyan scenario, we need to invest in the young people, not by opening businesses. Businesses is an intellect aspect. What they have immediately is the brawn, is the energy, physical energy. Can we open up more sports fields? Open up more basketball courts?
Right.
Open up, and then invite Kev to come and set up equipment like this.
Because he's using his intellect now.
There you go.
That's
Set
brilliant.
that up on a basketball court, stream those games.
That's amazing.
Because we have the internet today, and have young people then applying themselves, people seeing what they can do, and having multiple streams of YouTube channels broadcasting games. You don't just go to play. You're playing and it's being streamed. People are watching and saying, who is that guy? The more views, the more attention you get. And then you get to a point where people will say, we need this guy
On our team.
Make opportunities for sports. That would be my quick suggestion, because that's where the energy is. And then that will get the economy moving.
I want to talk about the biggest story in the country right now, abductions.
Sure.
And the criminalization of youth activism. We saw a lot of youth, now they're using AI and of course the Internet of Things to go about activism. They're very frustrated over the fact that, for example, how you mentioned there's no jobs. They're just not happy with the way the country is running their affairs.
Right.
Silhouettes. It's really gotten the attention of the government. People are pissed in government. They're saying, parents, you need to raise your kids well. All these other things. My question is, how do you foresee youth activism evolving towards, especially in the age of the internet? And can the government keep up with this? Should they just accept this as the norm and now, take it positively? This is just critic, but in a very youth form. It might seem very disrespectful as they put it, but where do you foresee this thing going? Because clearly intimidation and abductions is not going to work. Kenyans are pissed and they're sharing these images. I know the images the images I'm referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, so where do you foresee this type of activism evolving towards?
Right. One of the first questions, and I think many people have been asking this, is why has that kind of art form become vibrant in the current era? When I say art form, I'm referring to the... You have to be very careful. I know we're in a national radio station. When I'm referring to the art form, I'm referring to the silhouettes. So I'm saying, why has that art form come in the current era? And there's been art all through the years. And it has never been an aspect of a life-threatening situation in the past. We've had cartoonists like Gado, Mad, and all those in the past, providing commentary through art. And it has never, maybe they haven't told us, but we have not heard that Mado, Gado, and whoever has been doing art in the past has been a situation where their life was threatened. They were abducted because of an artwork they did for a Sunday piece. We have not heard those, but it is happening now. Let's jump out and look at other nations. In France, when they wanted to show displeasure with the king, you would find graffiti on streets.
Okay.
And it will have the same kind of artwork. Marie Antoinette would be drawn in the streets, and people would, this is what they'd be talking about. In the French Revolution, King Louis was also a subject of that. So that kind of art has always been a way for people to express their displeasure through art. Now, does that art represent who you are? It's a caricature. Are you acknowledging that that caricature is you? Are you a caricature? Is that your personality?
Right.
You know, so those are the questions that people ought to look at when you look at art form. So now let's look at AI. So AI is already telling us that people are using AI to create art. But in this sense, then they're using AI to also express their displeasure. Then you go to the nominations we were talking about. 40,000 people decided to put a vote and nominate someone and say, this is the most corrupt person. There's a lot of displeasure. This displeasure is now being tackled using, and this is something else maybe I forgot to raise, is being tackled using the tools of police service. Tools of police service. And I always ask the question, I always see policemen with batons. Most recently, we saw at Aga Khan Walk, there was a police commander with a baton on one hand and a walkie-talkie on the other. So here I'm communicating with whom? And then I have a baton.
To bash.
I've always asked the question, that baton, is it a tool of service? I wish you came with gloves. Then I can say this is a first aid trained policeman.
Yes.
So if things go wrong here, I can expect
Some CPR.
resuscitation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are the kind, when you talk about police, and that's why I was saying it's something I forgot to bring up. I wish we had the kind of police that does not walk around patrolling with, is it AK-47s or G3s?
Yeah.
But walk around with a bag, first aid on the back, and saying, if anything happens, you can count on me to
handle
save
this.
lives.
Yes.
Yeah, service to the people.
Right. That is what service ought to be. That's what we should aspire
Exactly.
for. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went off tangent.
No, it's fine. So now, so I was asking, in terms of, because this is just a start, where are we evolving towards when it comes to youth activism now that,
Right.
it's all about the AI, compared to what it was
Right.
back in the day. For example, you give so you give the example of France. They were using graffiti,
Right.
and now we are here. The government seems very agitated. They're using, abductions to try and counter all these forms of activism.
Yes.
So what does the future look like, especially now that we're in a new year? How do you foresee the youth dealing with their frustrations,
Right.
rather expressing their frustrations?
Right. So if expressing themselves through artwork, through AI art forms is being challenged with guns and abductions, then there's likelihood that the next form of expression of despair
Yeah.
will take a different form. Now,
Are they going to relent? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking they may not relent, because you see, art form means I'm in my privacy.
Yeah.
I can create art and put it out there, and probably seeing the risks of people like Kibet Bull have gone through. I may now want to do it in a more, could I call it surreptitious manner?
Good word.
I may put my artwork out there, but without attribution. And that may catch on. And now that this is the trend, you'll see many more silhouettes going out without attribution. Now that Kibet Bull has been singled out as the one who started,
Yeah.
if I put out an artwork today, how will you know it's me?
And they're already doing that already.
Apparently, yeah.
How will you know it's me?
And it's
It'll always
become
attributed to Kibet Bull,
right.
but other people will now start doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing. JP, have you got anything?
Oh, I think I have a lot that I need to
We
internalize.
should probably have a part 2.
Yeah, this is
on and on. And
Yeah.
on. I'm so excited because of there's a few things that you've touched on, and I'm sure guys didn't look at it from that angle, especially this whole thing of decentralizing power.
True.
That one is definitely my takeaway for this evening. But guys, remember, you can catch up with this conversation. If you're just joining us and you're wondering, oh, damn, that was Lawi. Oh, my God, I missed out. It's quite a pressure. Yes, so you can find this conversation on our YouTube. The channel is at SpiceFM KE. Now, we've been hanging out with Lawi Njeremani. He's the author of an amazing book known as The Trouble with Kenya. And we've just been, having a light conversation. Generally, we're asking you, is it mission impossible for Ruto? Will he turn around things this year, as some people would hope for? Other guys are saying, panakia, vitu zimeribika kabisa. Sawa. Lawi, thank you so much. This is definitely not the last time I'll invite you here.
Thank you.
Definitely not.
Exactly. Are you hopeful for this year, by the way? Just if I can revisit that question.
Yes. I've started off this year optimistically.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm saying, as much as things looked bad in 2024,
yeah,
I see some hope in 2025.
Okay.
Now, here's the catch.
Yeah.
There's the Ides of March.
Yeah.
Ides of March is when is depicted in the death of what was it, Roman Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar died in March, March 18th thereabout.
Okay.
And I always tell people, beware of the Ides of March. It's a common term used.
Right.
But I always say, beware of the Ides of March. And I use it in this context. Whatever you have planned for this year, you must achieve it by March. If you do not, the rest of the year will live on the momentum you started in the first quarter. Why do I say this? Let me use the example of a child. If you plan to have your baby by December, make sure it happens by March. Otherwise, April, that kid will be born in
January next year.
There you go.
I love that.
So whatever you plan for this year, make sure January, February, March is the time to achieve. If you're planning to have changes constitutionally, the first quarter is it. If you're planning to say must go, January, February, March is the time to do it.
I love that.
Right.
Once again, thank you so much, Lawi, for hanging out with us.
Thank you, guys.
Real.
It's 9:36. Here we go again. Oliver Tree and David Guetta. Alafu tukirudi, we're cruising the internet.
Yeah.
You good, JP?
Yeah, I'm easy,
You
man.
need some water?
Not at all.
So, good evening and happy holidays, guys.
Good music is timeless.
Okay, we're gonna do a few songs.
Spice FM.